All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome back, Kelly. Glad you could join us. So first thing on the agenda is the request for determination of applicability submitted by Kathleen Robolewski, seeking confirmation of resource area boundaries for the lot map 14 parcel 1 on Long Plain Road. I can share the plan that you sent me, Ward, if you would like to just give us a brief
Sure.
overview of what the request involves and just
Yep.
for people who are watching at home. All right, the floor is yours.
Okay. So this is an undeveloped lot to the east of Long Plain Road. It's close to 103 Long Plain Road. It's pretty much completely wooded. At the northern edge of, not the edge, but near the northern end of the lot, there is a well-defined stream that comes into the property from a culvert beneath the Long Plain Road and drains to the east into a very large red maple wooded swamp. It's in a pretty I would say pretty, very well defined eroded ravine. The soils in the upland part of the site are all deep sands and gravels. But to the east and southeast is a huge red maple wooded swamp that's vegetated by red maple, winterberry holly, um, highbush blueberry, and skunk cabbage. I did the delineation on April 29th of last year when there was jewelweed visible and all the skunk cabbage was visible, and my flags are above all of those species and also based on all the hydric soils. As you can see, there's a secondary ravine with a really small intermittent stream that drains it to the south. So our request is for the verification of the wetland boundaries because she would like to sell this as a building lot. As you can see, there are test pits for a perk there. And for the determination of the stream, which is shown as intermittent on the site plan, we ran the stream stats calculations and it came out as error message would not give us a perennial or intermittent finding. It's not shown on the USGS, so that's according to the regulations what you have to do. I ran it a bunch of times. I couldn't get anything. It's got a 0.51 square mile watershed, which is on the cusp of something that could be large enough to have a perennial stream. I called Mark Stinson at the DP and he ran the stream stats and he got the same thing. And he said, as I told Scott in the field, we'll let Scott decide. So we're asking for, we would be happy if it was an intermittent stream, and but we're trying to get this straightened out because it is going to affect how much development. Obviously, it's just going to be a single family house either way, but whether it has to be a really tiny house or whether it can be a more normal sized house.
Thank you, Ward. So just to review what the regulations say about the intermittent versus perennial determination, they basically provide a variety of scenarios where you would presume that it's perennial, and then it would be up to the applicant to submit evidence that overcomes that presumption, that shows that it's actually intermittent. If none of these scenarios fit the circumstances that we're looking at, then it's generally presumed to be intermittent. And there is no way to overcome that presumption because you can't prove a negative. You can't prove that it never goes dry. So the scenarios are, if it's shown on a topographic map as being perennial, this stream isn't shown on the topographic map, so that one doesn't qualify. The next is a watershed area of 1 square mile, and that also does not apply. And then the last one is a watershed area of 1/2 a square mile, which in this case would apply. But in addition to that, it has to have 75% of the contributing drainage basin be made up of stratified um, drift, which is well sorted glacial material where there's often a lot of fresh water, groundwater that could essentially make a stream more perennial because of the abundance of groundwater that would be contributing in addition to what comes from the actual watershed. Looking at the superficial geology, this does not have 75% stratified drift. It has a little bit of it, but not even half of the drainage basin would qualify in that case. So in my reading of the regulations, there's none of those scenarios fit in this case, and therefore we cannot presume that it is perennial, and we can't prove that it is perennial, which means in my mind that it's probably presumed intermittent. You all saw the stream while you were out there. Well, and you didn't see it, but the others can describe a little bit of what they saw. But I'll open it up for discussion at this point. We'll take the question of intermittent versus perennial first, and then the BVW delineation we'll tackle next.
I would call it an intermittent stream, Scott, just the way it looked like to me, you know.
Yeah, I've got no argument with that.
Monty, you want to chime in?
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. There was a little water. It didn't look like it was moving, and it's been pretty wet lately.
And that would be my opinion as well. In addition to what the regulations say, what we saw out there in the field didn't look anything close to perennial. There's very little bit of a channel, and even then, it didn't concentrate any significant water. So in that case, well, we'll hold on that and talk now about the delineation. Anybody have any qualms or quibbles with the delineation that we saw out there in the field?
No,
It looked fine. Looked fine to me.
All right. So the decision before the commission then is to issue a negative determination of applicability, approving the delineation as represented on the plan, and to include a finding that the stream involved is intermittent, or at least not perennial. Anybody have any additions or comments before we vote?
No.
No,
no.
All right, all in favor? Say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions? All right, so Ward, does that satisfy what you're looking for?
Yes. I mean, if you could put in your findings that there is no riverfront area on the property, that might be helpful for a potential buyer too, if it's, you know.
To be explicit about what
Yeah,
it means
just to be-
that it's an intermittent stream.
Yes.
Okay,
And
I have
any note that the commission would like to put in, and I have told the property owner that you have you don't have a wetlands bylaw, but you have a 50-foot no touch that you would like to have maintained. So if you could put something, what, you know, whatever your standard verbiage is for that.
okay,
I mean,
Okay.
I understand you do allow it to be encroached upon if it has to be, right?
right.
But I have no idea what the potential plans would be. It looks to me like there's enough space to put a house and stuff
Yeah.
without encroaching on the 50-foot, but
just random questions, Scott. Just say if they put like a culvert in there and tried to fill in that gully, would they like have to come back for us, or it's a no touch area? Now it's declared a wetland boundary.
Well, I can't imagine they would want to cross any of those gullies, but if they wanted to, they certainly would have to come and file a notice of intent with us.
Well, I'm just even like where the I'm looking at the one to the south where it comes in there, where they have like if they wanted to try and fill that in, yeah, that section there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bordering vegetated wetland. They can't fill that.
I think he's talking about just up gradient of that. You know, where
You
there
mean
was
up
a
in
gully.
here?
Yeah, or within
Or-
the 50-foot, within the 50-foot, you see the crosshatch shows the edge of embankment, I guess, the top of
Yeah.
the slope.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a finger between wetland
Yeah.
flag 827 and the top of the embankment. I think that's what you're speaking about.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying if you say if there's enough room for a house lot, or like you said, if you want a small lot or you're looking for a normal size lot, I'm trying to just picture in there how a house would fit between the two gullies.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that that would be practical, but if they did, I mean, anything within 50 feet generally requires a notice of intent.
Mhm.
It's up to the commission, obviously, but generally requires a notice of intent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if it's within 100 feet, at a minimum, they have to file a request for determination for the activity.
Yes.
I mean, we're only pinning down delineation. And then depending on what we see in terms of what they propose, we can say, yeah, you're going to need to put a notice of intent
Mhm.
together,
Yeah.
or we can say, no, this looks fine. So we get another crack at it, and our hands are not tied in any way, except that we are bound to the delineation for 3 years.
You will be getting another filing on this lot. I've already spoken to somebody that's interested in buying this lot who I've
Oh.
worked
Mhm.
for before. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's a conflict of interest because I told her I'm working for the property owner, but you know, it's she may be interested in this, and she, you know, my report to Kathleen specifically said anything within 100 feet, you need to do a filing with the conservation.
Yep.
So you will be seeing this project again.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Good.
All right. I think that we've concluded with this one. And
Okay.
thank you,
Thank you.
Ward, for joining us and for taking us on our tour on the weekend. And we'll see you soon, I guess, when you come back with your next filing.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Night, Ward.
All right. Now it's 4 minutes past 7:10 when we were supposed to reconvene the public hearing for the Haydenville Road project. The applicants say that they are not ready to reconvene the hearing and asked us if we would continue the hearing until our meeting next month, which is February 15th, is it? Let me look. No, it's 19th, I think. Yes, February 19th. So all in favor of continuing the public hearing until 7:10 p.m. on Wednesday, February 19th, say aye or raise your hand or
Aye.
Hi.
thumb your nose, whatever. Okay, thank you. All right, Tom, you're up. This is something that sort of popped up very close to when we had to get the agenda in. So I just invited him to come to the meeting.
Did you want to stop sharing, Scott, so we can see each other?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
There we go.
So Tom, go ahead and address the commission with what your question is.
Yeah, well, thanks for hearing me on short notice. I'd like to take down a silver maple, a dead silver maple in our front yard. Take the top out, the crown out, and leave the trunk. And I wanted to touch base with the Conservation Commission before I went ahead and did that. It's down toward the front of the property, and it's on the front lawn, and it's about 30, 40 feet from a rivulet, I guess you'd call it. And it dries up in June and July and August and September and October, and then gets flow again for part of the winter. Then it freezes up, and then it goes through that kind of cycle. So I want to. We won't go near the rivulet. We'll be working on the house side of it, not the road side of the bank and the rivulet. And I just wanted to touch base with you about that. It's on the front lawn.
Yeah. I drove by today and just took a look at it, and basically the trees on the edge of the lawn and the access point would be across the lawn from the high ground. It's, you know, we're talking a single tree and you're talking about just topping it, right?
Right.
Yeah. So commission members, if you have questions or comments, here's your chance.
I see no issue with that. That's fine.
Are there any regulations that apply to that situation?
Well, this is where it's sort of gray areas in the regulations because, you know, it says any work that's going to be done within 100 feet of a wetland, needs to file at least a request for determination or a notice of intent. But then there have been rulings by judges that said that when it's just maintaining already legally, permitted structures or I would put things like lawn in there, other things like that, that it's really a de minimis situation that doesn't require a filing. So, like when somebody wants to mow their lawn, but they're within 100 feet of a wetland, we don't make them file with us to do that. So that's the kind of sort of, I guess, common sense element of it is, it's hard to know where to draw that line. It becomes a judgment call. That's why I asked Tom to come to the meeting, because it's not a clear regulatory line there.
I don't see any issue with it.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't either. I'm fine.
All right, I agree. Tom, I'd say just tell the truck driver to be really careful, not to drive over your septic tank or your leach field.
That's really my main concern.
Yeah.
We've been waiting for the ground to freeze up before we brought the truck in. They're gonna
Hmm.
put pads down, but we're waiting for the ground to get hard. And I should note, the reason we're leaving the trunk, if you look just to the north, there's another tree that we did that years ago. And it's basically a feeder for wildlife. That's why
Mhm.
we're leaving the trunk.
Yep.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think you got the answer you were hoping for. So
Good.
you don't need to file anything with us. If anything unusual happens, just let us know, just so that if somebody drives by and sees it, we can always tell them what's going on. So
Yeah,
at this point, we know what you're planning to do. If it changes, just let me know.
good. Thanks very much. Again, appreciate you letting me in on short notice.
Yeah, no problem, Tom.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good night,
Right.
Tom.
All right, so next up on the agenda is the planning board's request for our endorsement for the floodplain overlay district bylaw. And Brant's here, he can make that request directly. So go ahead, Brant.
Hey there, guys. Scott, did you circulate to the commission the latest copy of the bylaw itself?
I believe I did, right? You all got them? It was a little while ago, so.
Right.
Okay.
Good. So we're getting ready on the planning board. This floodplain overlay district bylaw has been maybe a couple of years in the incubation process and going through various rounds of board reviews and state reviews. And one of the sticking points we overcame was the paragraph part G that called out a role for the Conservation Commission in the administration of the bylaw. And we're getting ready on the planning board to hold our public hearing on February 12th, so a few weeks away, to seek other public input. This is one of those kind of bylaws where really needs to pass, because if we don't pass a bylaw to protect the floodplain, the regulatory floodplain in Whately, then we'll lose access to the National Flood Insurance Program. I mean, it's kind of like it needs to happen. But as we all know, that things that need to happen in law don't always happen depending on how the votes go. But what I'm here for is I wanted to, again, just talk to you, make sure, and really seek the Conservation Commission's endorsement, or whatever word or phrase you feel comfortable with, whether you don't necessarily have to endorse the whole bylaw. Really, most of it, I just want to make sure you're comfortable with your role in the bylaw as called out in Part G. And this could be, I mean, is this strictly, do I need this? I feel like it would be ideal to kind of have the Conservation Commission on record. I think you're really the one other commission in this town that has a formalized role in the bylaw. And so, yeah, just, it would be good to have you on record, like, yep, we know that we're in there, we know what that means, we're good with it. That's essentially the nature of the request, but I would leave it to you to, there's no requirement about what you say about it, though it would be terrible if you rejected it for some reason. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Happy to entertain questions.
Yes, and Brant, are you saying that is this something that's going to be voted on at town meeting and you want to have the whatever it says, supported by the Conservation Commission?
Whether that ends up in the town meeting warrant, that may or may not be strictly necessary, but I think that what I'm doing here, what we're doing here is kind of just getting all of our ducks in order. I don't
Yeah.
want anybody to be raising their hands at town meeting and like, is the Conservation Commission okay with this? And like, no one ever really asked you. That would really suck.
Understood. Well, I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but I do remember that when I read it, I thought it was fine.
I'm prepared if you need me to just share that paragraph on the screen so everybody can look at it one more time. You just let me know if you want me to do that. I'm gonna just, sharing is not turned on for me for what it's worth.
All right, I can turn it on.
You'll let me know when.
All right, you should be all set now.
All right, here we go. There we go. I'm gonna share this. There's that. All right. And what you should see on your screen is Part G of the bylaw in its entirety. I guess I'll just sort of can point out that the way this says that this commission, shall issue an opinion to the floodplain administrator. So you're not a gatekeeper. You are an advisory to the floodplain administrator. The floodplain administrator role is assigned to the town's community development administrator, who is Erica Roper, recently hired, and she understood, in fact, was looking forward to being the floodplain administrator as part of her job duties. So she's aware of this.
I think it sounds great.
Thank you.
Looks good to me.
It looks fine to me too.
Yep.
You, George?
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, I agree. We reviewed this a few times. We've commented. You've incorporated our comments. I think that looks great. But more broadly, the idea of a bylaw, a floodplain protection bylaw, I think we want to endorse more than just Section G. I've had a chance to read it through numerous times through the process, and I'm satisfied with it. Are the rest of you happy enough to be able to vote and say, yes, we endorse or support this when it comes up at the public hearing, at town meeting, or if it gets written in on the warrant? Tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
Yes, so am I.
I am as well.
All right, so let's make it a formal vote. Conservation Commission endorses the proposed floodplain protection bylaw, district bylaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there you go. I didn't think this would be a tough one.
All right. Well, we all want to protect our floodplains. Appreciate it. So that'll be noted in your minutes.
Yep.
I will then feel fully authorized at the public hearing to include in any remarks I make about the bylaw that has been reviewed by and endorsed by the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have our permission to relay that. The minutes will be approved at our February meeting, and then, which is after your public hearing. So nobody's going to be able to look up and check on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it will
I'll have to
eventually
take your
end up
word for
publicly
it.
posted. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
hope
who
that-
knows, maybe one of us will be there and we can speak to it directly.
Okay. Okay. Then for me, I'm so appreciative. Thanks for your time. Thanks for willing to look at it. Thanks for working with me, Scott, and all on getting the language right. So far, the state's happy with it. So I really want to see this get to annual town meeting this year. Thanks all.
Okay, thank you, Brent.
And thank you and the planning board for putting this together. I think it's an important piece of local legislation here.
Yep.
All right, awesome. Have a great night, you guys.
You
Good
too.
night.
Bye-bye now.
All right. So next up is, we received from town administrator, this annual call for project requests for FERCog's district local technical assistance. In the past, that's basically how Kelly got her job. Is that we actually said we wanted this. We picked this from a list of things that FERCog had proposed. And we said, yes, we would like to see a feasibility study of a shared conservation agent. And that's what got the ball rolling. So FERCog put out the report, and then Ashfield jumped on it and started calling or emailing other towns to see how many would be interested in getting involved. And now here we are, and here you are, Kelly. So anybody have any ideas for other things we'd like to ask FERCog to do?
How about you, Scott? Do you have any ideas?
I couldn't think of anything.
Yeah, I
More
can't.
file cabinets.
All right. Well, it sounds like we're finished with that agenda item.
Mhm.
The one thing I will say about the shared agent position, and Kelly knows about this because we had a meeting recently with the advisory committee, that there is another town that is considering joining in. And at first Conway was interested, and then Conway decided they're not interested. They've been in and out twice now, in twice and out twice. I think it's Charlemont, right, Kelly? Charlemont's the one that's now thinking seriously about coming in. The other 5 towns have voted to or have expressed the opinion that we'd be happy to have one more. That way, if any town drops out, we still have 5, and we still have sort of a viable program that we can get support for funding. And so we put together the budget. I asked Pete about it, and he said, go with the most expensive version for now, and we'll feed that to the finance committee so that it'll cover any, budget once it finally gets worked out in detail from the regional point of view. So that's the news there. Kelly, you have any other news or other things you want to report?
No, not this month. Been pretty quiet.
Yeah. I've been slow to hand things off to Kelly. So I did give her a tour of the town offices when it was closed. And I was trying to find the box. I was trying to find the Conservation Commission's filing cabinet. I couldn't even find that. They've rearranged everything. I was going to show her the boxes that Jim Ross left me full of files that need to be organized, and I couldn't find those. We couldn't even find the light switch in the storage room. So we were walking around with our phone light trying to find things that way. So it's something that's on my to-do list to introduce Kelly to the rest of the staff that are there at the town offices and to Pete. I noticed that Pete has already got a desk set up for her, and there's a plaque on the wall that has shared conservation agent on it. So it was nice to see that they're
It's
making room.
official.
Yeah, it's real official. And Kelly said it might be even nicer to work there than it is up in Ashfield, at least in terms of probably noise and other confusion that goes on, chaos, whatever.
Yep. I don't have a plaque in Ashfield, so that's one up.
Next, we need to review the minutes, the voluminous minutes from last meeting. Did anybody have any issues with that? Like 3 dozen words that went into that?
The minutes were perfect, Scott.
Look great.
All right, all in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
I
Aye. All right. That's the formal agenda. We have updates and other business in case there's anything else that I don't have anything else, but if any of you have anything to share, any observations, any comments?
I can update you briefly on the Energy Storage Systems Study Committee, which has
Go
met,
ahead.
we've met twice more since the last Concom meeting. We tend to be, looks like we're meeting every 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Been a lot of research and study shared, a lot of information going around. As I think I mentioned before, the bylaws that Wendell and Shutesbury both proposed were tossed out by the AG. Because they were basically trying to ban these battery systems. We found a couple that have been approved. One in Sunderland, which FERCog assisted with, and another in Wayland, Mass. Brad is putting out a call on the statewide planners listserv to identify any other battery storage bylaws that have been approved by the AG. So we'll take a look across all whatever we get. It's not going to be many, because most towns and cities are in the early stages of looking at this. I think after the input we've had from TJ, the fire chief, and a lot of the research we've looked at, most of us are feeling somewhat reassured about the risk. It's certainly there, but some of the horror stories that are circulating had to do with systems that were designed and installed and commissioned before updates in the National Fire Prevention Codes that have since taken place, which have done a lot to tighten that up. And then the systems have progressed in the design and engineering. So there's the safety factor is much higher at this point. But we're still designing for bylaws for the worst case scenario. The way this will probably work out is that we're discussing now whether we can have bylaws ready for town meeting this year. That's going to be tight. There's a lot to do. We have a query outstanding, came out of last night's meeting to town council to assess what our potential risk might be if we have no bylaws until next year's town meeting. So we're waiting to hear on that. Right now, as things stand with zoning bylaws, if something is not specifically stated in the table of uses and the bylaws, it's assumed prohibited. So for standalone battery storage systems, there's that hurdle that any developer would have to get through. And that would likely involve court, so then it would be a longer process. What we're looking at coming up with are 2 bylaws. One, a general bylaw that deals with licensing these installations that could address ongoing inspections and maintenance and decommissioning over the life of the installation, and a zoning bylaw which could address other issues around placement and setbacks and all that stuff. The Sunderland bylaw was able to restrict these larger standalone systems to one commercial 2 zone, which is a fairly small zone up on the northeast corner of town, up on 63, up above Mount Toby, up in there. AG did approve that. Whether that would stand up in court is TBD, and so we'll see on that. So that's where we are at this point. There's a lot of information changing hands, a lot of activity, a lot of people looking at it carefully. I think this is a very well-run committee. Joyce is chairing it, so. And that's
Well,
what.
it's nice to have a physicist involved, huh?
Yeah, and someone with we have Doug Coldwell also,
Okay.
a farmer in town who's got a large solar installation with I think he's got the place across from the transfer station there, all the greenhouses. I believe that's his.
Yeah.
Brant also is on this committee, and Brant has a large residential battery storage in his basement that's tied into Eversource with some kind of grid exchange program that they pay for, where they're free to draw on his residential batteries as needed. Which I hadn't heard of before. And apparently there are
Yeah,
a number of those
interesting.
popping up now. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
So is FERCog working with you? Are they helping to write this?
they're not helping to write it. We've got Judy Markland on there. We're using the existing solar bylaws from town and figuring out how we need to update those and enhance them, and writing an additional bylaw that deals with the standalone systems that could be coming. There's one person from FERCog who helps Sunderland who has agreed to come to one of our meetings and answer questions and help as needed. But the feeling right now is that we can move faster without FERCog, frankly.
You've got a good committee. You got a lot of good people on that committee.
Yeah, Mike Archibald is on there from the Health Board of Health, and yeah, it's a good group, and then it's moving along.
Thank you for representing the Conservation Commission.
Yep, glad to, and it's of interest to me, and I'm glad we're addressing this, and we're fairly early in the state to do this. But it's necessary given the state's new energy laws that will take effect in March 2026.
Important stuff.
Yep.
Any questions or comments from other of you?
Nope.
Any other business? All right, I think we've run out of things to talk about then. Thanks for coming out.